Wait, hold up. Before all my fellow believers come at me with torches and pitchforks and all that, just hear what I got to say, okay? Just hear what I got to say, though.
Menace.
If I preach the word of God, then they say that I'm a menace. Who are you to judge without looking in the spirit? So I'ma go hard, and I'ma point them to the cross. Living water flowing from my heart, so they say I'm a menace. And I will never walk away from you. Oh, they say I'm a menace. No compromising, I give them out. Look how we spelling it.
What's going on, Eternal Soldiers? Eternal 316 here with another motivational video. But before I do, the reason I'm not in frame right now is because I want to show y'all real quick. A lot of you liked my former motivational video, and I think Shy commented down below saying that the shirt looks better. So combined with all the likes I got and the comment I got, I'm assuming you guys like the shirt right here better than the green bandana, which I put over here. Tom Brady, greatest of all time. I rearranged everything in my my background right here to, so I could fit the shirt right there, and I hope you guys like it. All right, guys. Right here, bro. I just want to show you on my shirt real quick. Property of 316 Jesus. Yes, sir. All right. So here's the deal, y'all. Like I said in my intro, before all the believers come at me with pitchforks and knives and torches and all that, hear me out, y'all, okay? So the title of this video is going to throw some believers off, why Christians should be excited for the rise of the Antichrist. Now, I don't necessarily mean the rise itself, because obviously we are clearly seeing that we're in the end times, and soon the Antichrist is going to rise to power, and, we're going to be persecuted. He's going to come for us. So let's keep it 100, right? He's going to come for us, so that's not something to be excited about, but there is something that is to be excited about. So let's talk about that. So I'm going to read a total of 4 different verses. The first 2 is from Timothy. So I'll read them out right now. 2 Timothy 3:2 says, people will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, without self-control, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. Does that sound like present day to y'all? It does to me. Sounds like the past 40, 50 years we've been coming up to this point, right? Sounds like it's talking about present day. And then 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1 says, and the Spirit clearly says that in the later times and days, some will abandon the faith and follow deceiving spirits and things taught by demons. Basically what that means is that the enemy will use modern day society and views to stray people away from the faith, which is what he's successfully doing. Is, if you could check the statistics, more and more people are becoming less and less Christian. And there's less Christian numbers as there was maybe 40, 50 years ago. So the enemy is now starting this process of using modern day society and views to stray people away from the faith. Now, the other 2 biblical verses that I'm going to read is from Revelation. Now, the important thing to remember about Revelation is that when Revelation was written by John, I believe. I think John was the last disciple, and I think he was, what is it? He was exiled? Yeah, he was exiled by the Romans, and he was forced to live in a cave for the majority of his life. And during those times, Christ came to him and gave him a revelation, which is where the chapter of the name comes from, of the future. and what is going to be taking place present day. And what I mean by present day is I don't necessarily mean this year or the fall. I mean like this modern time is what I mean. Like within the past 50 years to now and then to the future. You know, John saw a revelation. Jesus showed him what will transpire. And the most important thing to remember when reading Revelation is that John didn't necessarily understand everything that he was seeing. You know, you need to understand this was 2,000 years ago. And when he was getting this vision, he couldn't comprehend microchips. He couldn't comprehend helicopters, jets, or, technology. It didn't grasp. You know what I mean? Like he couldn't comprehend that. So he had to put it into words that he understood. You know what I mean? So that is what is the most important thing to remember when reading Revelation is that John was writing it in words that he could put into comprehension. Because it was hard for him to comprehend these visions, you know? All right, so Revelation 18 says, "After this, I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth was might bright with his glory, and he called out with a mighty voice, 'Fallen! Fallen is Babylon the Great.'" Of course, there was a kingdom named Babylon, but this was way before our time, right? This is Revelation. So, I think what he is talking about is the New World Order. That's what I think he's talking about, is Babylon the Great. "She has become a dwelling place for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit, a haunt for every unclean bird, a haunt for everything unclean, and the detestable beast. For all nations have drunk the wine of passion from her sexual immorality, and the kings of the earth have committed immorality with her." The kings of the earth have committed immoralities with her. You're starting to see that today. "And the merchants of the power have grown rich from the power of her luxurious living." Sounds like the governments, right? Growing rich with luxurious living? Right. "Then I heard another voice saying, 'Come out of her, my people, lest you take part in her sins, lest you share in her plagues, for her sins are heaped as high as heaven. And God has remembered her iniquities.'" So that is God talking, obviously. He's telling, listen, my people, come out of her, or you're going to share in the same plagues that I'm going to bring upon her, because I remember her sins and I remember her iniquities. He's talking about the rise of the Antichrist and the New World Order and the enemy. That's who he's talking about. And he's telling y'all need to come out of her before I come back and I start to rain hellfire. That's what he's basically saying. Revelation 21, and this is where the good news comes in. "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw a holy city, the new Jerusalem." I've talked about that in my songs. "Coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband." That's what I mean by he's just trying to write down in comprehension what the best he possibly can. "A bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them, be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning, crying or pain, and for the older things have passed away." And that verse basically tells you why we should be excited for the coming of the rising of the Antichrist. It's because each year that we get closer to the rise of the Antichrist, and each year that we suffer during the rise of the Antichrist, is each year getting closer to Christ's return. And that is what you should be excited about, believers, is the fact that Christ is going to return and restore order to earth with his kingdom. The old earth and the old, I think what I don't know what that necessarily means, like the new heaven and the new earth. Well, I know what the new earth passed. I know what he means by the old earth has passed away. That basically means that the earth that we're living in right now is no longer going to exist when Christ brings the new earth. That's what he means. But as far as the old heaven, I don't know what that means. I don't know if he means he's going to create a whole new galaxy. Maybe that might be the case. Maybe what he means by a new heaven is like new heavens, and he's going to create a whole new galaxy. Maybe that's what it is. But the good news is that when Christ returns, we will no longer have to worry about the old things on earth. We won't have to worry about pain, suffering, death, sins, immorality, adultery. We won't have to worry about any of that because we will be placed in new bodies that won't crave evil. We'll be in a paradise like the Garden of Eden was at one point, physically dwelling with God himself. And we will not have to worry about anybody committing any more sins. Everybody will love each other. Everybody will be living in total harmony and peace, at least for 1,000 years, because later down the road, the New Jerusalem comes after the 1,000 years. So basically, you guys can read about the 1,000-year reign of Christ and what that means before the New Jerusalem comes. But the good news is that at the end of the day, in the end, we will be able to dwell with Christ for all eternity. And we won't have to worry about, we will no longer have to worry about the New World Order rising or anything like that ever again. And that's the good news. That is why we should be excited about the times that we're living in, because you are living in the generation and in the times, in the modern day era, where you're starting to see all the biblical scriptures coming to life. And that is why it's a good thing, because soon we will be able to see the return of Yeshua himself, and he'll be able to restore order. All right, guys. So keep your head up, keep the faith, keep fighting the good fight. Y'all already know what time it is. Eternal soldiers, we marching like menaces, boy, against the enemy. Eternal 316 is signing off. Later, y'all. Peace!